Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Perucci, and I'm the founder at Perucci Publishing. Today, I'm really excited to interview Andrea G Hardeman. She is the new best-selling author of Love the Journey, Poetry and Art Selections. It's available as an ebook, hardcover, or paperback book, and it includes, as the title suggests, both poetry and Andrea's artwork. So Andrea, thank you so much for having a little discussion with me in celebration of the release of your book today.
Of course, happy to be here.
What compelled you to start writing poetry? I know that for me, as a near 40-year-old woman, I don't know many people who write poetry. It doesn't seem to be as in vogue as perhaps it was when we were teenagers, young adults, finding ourselves going on our journeys. Maybe people write when they go through an experience. How have you,
Right.
how and why have you committed to the art of poetry writing?
I started writing poetry when I was 15, and it has just become part of me. And so I can't not write it. There'll be times where a poem just simply comes to mind. And for me, it will come like in full form. And so I just capture it before I lose it. And then I may go back and rework it. But it's how I am able to process and to articulate what I'm going through the best.
I think a lot of writers will say that sometimes they process through writing, and until they write, they don't really understand what they feel.
Exactly. Yeah, same.
Do you find yourself having to sneak away when you're out with friends or at an event or even in a work meeting where you have to go and just voice dictate or write something on your phone? Or is it the kind of thing where you go into a sacred writing space at a certain time of day?
No, like when I get the urge, I just bust out the notepad on my phone and I jot it down right then. And sometimes it's just fragments where I'm like, oh, I really like this phrase, but I can't go any further in this moment. And so I really try and strike while the iron is hot. So there's been times, especially when I was writing the book, I would be on the way to the gym and I had a conversation with a friend, and then I just got inspired to create a poem around that. And then I'd be sitting in my car multiple times, like, oh, it's been like 30 minutes and it's winter and it's cold, but I just need to get this out really fast. And then I'll go work out, or then I'll go into the store. So
That's beautiful. Do you ever play around with different styles of poetry? Like, oh, I'm just going to take these beautiful words and put it into a haiku or a sonnet. Or do you kind of have a style that's your go-to style for the emotions that and for the voice that you have?
my poetry is very free form. I don't like being constrained, and I like to go as it flows. And then I kind of go back and tweak the structure, but I never have a rhyming scheme, or that's never my intent. My intent is purely to capture the flow of inspiration and the emotions to get it down as they come, and then go from there. I've taken a poetry class before, a community-based one, where that was the first time I really had to sit down and like hammer out a poem where it just wasn't inspiration, and we were modeling it after a poet that we admired. And I chose Anne Sexton, and that the poem that I wrote for that workshop is actually in the book. It's because I love her version, her kind, and then I created one from a male perspective called His Kind. And that one was very challenging but extremely rewarding.
Mm. Do you ever perform your poetry? Because from what I've read, it has the opportunity to be quite a captivating spoken word performance.
I do. There's a place here locally called 365 Poetry, and also the Hardware Creative Collective. And those are the two main places where I will share my poetry. But I'm always looking for more opportunities because it helps get me out of my comfort zone, because it is challenging and scary to be so raw and vulnerable. And there's things that I want to finesse about my poetry performance, to really bring the audience in more, give them more context so they can really understand me as well as my words.
Mm. Do you spend as much time on the artwork as the poetry, or vice versa? Or is it one of those things where you just move with spirit and channel either art or poetry when it comes? When, I like how you say, when the iron's hot.
Yeah, I move in flow. And there's times where I haven't been able to paint for a while because I've been working on the book and that took so much time. And I was like, I just really miss it. And I just need to sit down. And so I'm rearing to go. But yeah, so I do it as it comes.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me laugh because I warn people, I'm like, publishing and writing a book, even if it's poetry and there's not a lot of editing, it's so much more work than people realize.
Oh yeah, I told her, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, we don't have time for this. I was like, no, I know I submitted it and it's with the book formatter. I was like, oh, we're further along, so I'll have more time. That was not the case. So
Well, you're also a good steward of sharing the blessing. And a lot of people, they just, they publish and then they forget about it. But what I love about Love the Journey is it's the marathon, not the sprint. This is a timeless piece that people will enjoy, for generations. And now that it's out there, and now that it's going to be passed from hand to hand, friend to friend, family member, mother to daughter, it's one of those things where, it's the life just started and you kind of went through the birth. And it's going to be really beautiful to see how it impacts people for years.
that's my hope. I'm really excited.
What compelled you to release Love the Journey right now? We're speaking in March of 2022 right now. And if you've been writing since you were 15, what compelled you to finally gift this work to the world in the form of a book?
I've wanted to, have a collection of my poetry published. That's always been a dream since I was 15 and started writing. But I didn't know anyone who'd written anything. So it was just like, oh, that's something I want. And I didn't know. I didn't have the tools or resources. And my best friend, who I've known since I was 15 as well, she, every so often, especially the last few years of the pandemic, she would just encourage me, hey, so you really should. I always like share my poetry with her, and she gets like the first preview, and lets me know like, here's a gut check on how this is hitting. And yeah, so I was in the back, I was like, okay, like, that just sounds overwhelming. I talked to people who I know it's self-published, and I was like, I don't have time to do that. I work full time and I have so many other things going on. And so I just didn't know. And then back in October, one of your colleagues connected with me because we had a mutual connection. So it was very synchronous and random. And I was like, oh, hey, I'd love to connect. And then I saw her title. I was like, oh, I'm curious, like, what do you do? And so it was my natural curiosity. And then she happened to say, oh, and if you're ever looking to publish a book, like, keep us in mind. I was like, well, actually, I need to do that. I just didn't know how. And so it really just came together organically at the right time. And most of the poems that are in the book have been written over the last few years, especially 2020 to now.
That was another question I had, was how recent are those pieces? Because a lot of them have similar themes. And that's another really exciting thing about this book is something monumental will happen in your life, and it's going to be a new book.
Yes, probably.
The poems are very raw, but they're not, so to speak, related to a specific year, although I'm sure everything that has happened in the world over the last 2 years did facilitate some pretty raw emotions. Were you nervous to put the book out there?
I wasn't nervous, but at the same time, I was like, I want people to read it, but I want strangers. I don't want anyone at work to know, because I don't want them to see me in that way. And just, concerned about how I might be viewed, how it might impact me, like in a workspace, or if they think this, because the themes are around mental wellness, mental well-being, and a lot of personal things, whether to me or through loved ones, where I've just kind of captured that experience. And, when we move through the world, we have certain things we want people to see. And we don't always want to be seen at that deepest level, especially it's easier for a stranger because like they won't judge me. They don't know me. I won't see them. So it doesn't matter. And so that part, but also I knew I needed to do it. And when it came time, I was like, okay, well, I have to, if I'm going to go for a bestseller, I have to let people know. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll just do it and see what happens.
Yeah. That's something I can't really put into words how grateful I am for authors like yourself who put themselves out there to get the blessing into more people's hands, even though it is very vulnerable.
Yeah. And another thing, so I can't remember if she was Miss Universe or Miss America, but a Black woman who recently died by suicide, and kind of going through and, her discontent with aging and how the world treats her, and that fear, and seeing that. And then also having people in my life who have gone through other types of trauma and who have either died by suicide or been on suicide watch. And I just need people to know that they're not alone. And so it became bigger than me and something I need to do because I know what it's like to not feel seen. And I want other people to know that they're not alone in that, and that there is a way through, and that there is hope. I don't know when your journey is going to come onto the other side, but it has to, because that is how life works. Nothing lasts forever. Everything is impermanent, even our sadness, our pain, our joy. And so to not get stuck in the moment, and you can work through your emotions and they will not consume you. There's a way to do it in a healthy manner where you won't be consumed, and you can come out on the other side.
I remember reading that story, and it's just coming to me in this moment that, one of my authors, his entire world is around decreasing the 22 suicides a day among veterans alone. That's not taking into account the astronomically high suicide rates among civilians, and especially since 2020.
Yes.
And it really hits me how important your words are in a time like this for people who have been all the healing they thought they had. It's like start over for a lot of people. They didn't expect what we've all encountered. I'm going to introduce you to that author. I think there's a collaborative opportunity here that's coming to me right here live on camera that didn't occur to me until a moment ago. And that's what's so special about the live open-ended format. And I think you kind of answered one of my biggest questions. Just what do you want readers to take away from this?
That there's hope and healing, and that you are seen. It's not even that you are loved, but you are loved. And I want it to be a tool for those who have loved ones where they don't understand the journey. And I want them to have a window into my life and my experiences, whether they are my own direct or that I've experienced indirectly, and how I've processed things, so they can see how to relate and have greater empathy. I have so much empathy because of what I've gone through. And that struggle with loneliness. I know what it's like to feel alone in a crowded room and to isolate yourself because you don't want to be seen or you don't feel seen. And writing the book and having people, even I'm really close to, that don't know some of these things or the depth, it feels so good to be seen and to be held in that love. And this book has allowed me to show up for myself. And so it's been so many lessons for me personally. And then as people resonate with my artwork or my poetry, I learn more about like, oh, I didn't take it that way, but that's very interesting. And so it's just this great iterative learning process.
If you were to ask your readers when they head over to the link that I have at the bottom of this video, or if they head to your website, and people can purchase from your art website as well. You have a link to the book?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Just making
I
sure.
wanted to make it super easy for people.
Good. Just making sure. So I'm actually going to I'm going to ask a question that it may be that you've already ordered the poetry and the art in the way that you want people to consume it. But if someone's going to purchase the book, where do you want them to start? Do you want them to start with the first poem? Or would there be one poem that you think everyone needs to start with? Particularly people like me. I had a really hard day yesterday, not hard, but very, very busy and very, very exhausting. I was in this all-day retreat, 2 days in a row, like 12-hour days. I'm like, I'm just going to pick up my Kindle and just start reading. And I'm like, I don't know where to start. And I was looking at headlines or, titles from the poems. Where would you suggest people start?
I'd say to allow whatever speaks to you, whether that's kind of flipping through really fast and seeing something that catches your eye, whether it's an art piece or a phrase in a poem, and going from there and just really allowing. I'm all about flow. So look at the table of contents and see if anything really pops out to you. And if not, then just start from the beginning or start wherever you want. There are no rules. If you want to see the journey from the perspective as it was written, then read it from beginning to end. But it's your book, and this is also your journey as well. So if there's something that is speaking to you currently in that moment, then do that. But to also get the full picture and intent of the book, still go back and at some point read it through to see the flow, because everything is intentionally placed. And there are art pieces that I did not put in because this doesn't really flow. Like, I want people to see this. I want this to be in a book, but it does not flow with this book. And so it's, yeah.
I like that. It's encouraging your reader to do what you do to create your poetry.
Yeah.
Just be present with that moment and surrender to that flow, that divine source that's always going to give us what we need to
exactly
move forward in the journey.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then there's also at the beginning, if you post selfies with the book, then I will send you a discount code for a percentage off of my artwork, because I want my art to be in people's homes, not to line my pockets, but because I feel art should be accessible and affordable, and that everyone deserves to surround themselves with beautiful things. And we forget that art is an experience, music is an experience. Like, yes, let's take the vacations and unplug, but you also need to create a home environment that you want to be in, that helps you ground.
What hashtag do you want us to use, or who do you want us to tag when we're posting, let's say on Instagram?
Yeah, so use the hashtag Love the Journey Book, and then you can tag me at Papillon Skies. And so it's PAPILLONSKIES.
I love it. That is brilliant, by the way, because it's bringing people together, and the people reading your book, more than anything, the goal is coming together and sharing the journey. And
It is. It's all about connection. And I'm a connector in general in my
yeah,
life. I have a very eclectic group of friends and associates. And I love having the synergy like, hey, I need to introduce you to so and so because this would really line up with, you know, this project you're working on, or even just you need to have a conversation because you're on the same wavelength. And I think there'd be synergies that come. So I'm doing that with the book as well.
I love it. Well, this is a tremendous blessing. This is only
Thank
step
you.
one. I want for our next conversation to include some of the stories from people who've experienced Love the Journey. All the links that people need, hashtags, etc., they're below. But in addition, you can message Andrea G Hardeman, author of Love the Journey, Poetry and Art Selections. And with that, I just want to thank you.
Thank you so much.
This has been a really beautiful project. I'm honored to witness how you put this together. And I hope everyone watching will be blessed as much as I've been blessed by your art. Thank you.
Thank you.